Hello, and welcome to the Songwriters Workshop. This is the series where I attempt to write songs based on the process and techniques of famous songwriters. Each video looks at a different songwriter's writing habits, musical inspirations, and creative process, while also including an original song written using those techniques. So let's take a look at our next songwriter. In this video, we will be returning to the songwriting techniques of Jimmy Webb, specifically his approach to writing lyrics. I covered Jimmy's process for getting started on a song in the very first video for the Songwriters Workshop, so go check out that video if you haven't already. There'll be a link in the description. That video also has a brief background on Jimmy's songwriting career, but suffice to say he is the mastermind behind amazing songs like Wichita Lineman, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, By the Time I Get to Phoenix, and MacArthur Park, the last of which I hear can be very dangerous to certain precious family heirlooms.
I got to the part about I'll never have the recipe again, and it slipped out of my hand and it broke. My parents looked at me like I smashed the 10 Commandments.
The research for this video will again come from Jimmy's amazing book on songwriting, Tunesmith. In it, Jimmy gives a detailed account of the intricacies of songwriting, as well as showing his own session-by-session process for writing a song. Jimmy says about learning from other songwriters, "Knowledge of and respect for the work of others is the first essential ingredient in the development of a truly effective technique, if for no other reason than because, as John Gardner states, all great writing is, in a sense, imitation of great writing." That is the way my career started, imitating the writers of songs that I heard on the radio in my early years. As new songwriters, we walk in the footsteps of Colossi. Jimmy has so much to teach about songwriting, and I know his insights have helped countless songwriters find their way. I hope this video helps even more people learn from his techniques and create even more amazing songs. So let's get started. For my first writing session, I used one of the techniques I go over in my video about Jimmy's suggestions on how to get started and expand on the idea of your song. Again, go watch that video if you want some ways to flesh out what your song is going to be about, but for this song, I decided to just use the letter writing method to get started. Taking inspiration from Jimmy's songs like Galveston and Wichita Lineman, I decided to center my song around a location. Jimmy grew up in Oklahoma, near the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, so his songs would reference the kinds of places he grew up around. I'm from the Southwest, so I decided my song would use Santa Fe, New Mexico as its focal point. Before we jump into the lyric writing, there's a couple of tools Jimmy recommends having on hand for constructing lyrics. He says of the other songwriters that he knows that there is one thing that these gentlemen and ladies all have in common, whatever their style. Virtually all of them keep a rhyming dictionary and thesaurus close by. In particular, Jimmy says he uses Clement Wood's The Complete Rhyming Dictionary for a number of reasons, the most important being facility and ease of operation. In the heat of battle, the most significant factor is probably speed. This is also the rhyming dictionary I will be using, along with a standard Merriam-Webster thesaurus. But Jimmy notes that there are many effective rhyming dictionaries as well as online resources, so whatever works best for you. While some songwriters oppose rhyming dictionaries, Jimmy defends their use, saying, "It is bad writing that ruins rhymes, not lists of words that do or do not rhyme." But he also recognizes the practice of using your own inner rhyme before turning to a dictionary, saying it is a perfectly natural description of the way most songwriters work. That is, exhausting their own mental resources first, and then falling on the rhyming dictionary when difficulty sets in. Using my letter from the previous session, I got started on my lyrics. To begin, I followed Jimmy's lead and started looking for possible rhymes for my idea of using Santa Fe. Jimmy says, when deciding on a title or hook line for a proposed song, try to include a keyword that offers the greatest number of rhyming possibilities. So I started going through my rhyming dictionary and started a list of related rhymes with Santa Fe that might suitably work for the song I wanted to write. Related rhymes, as Jimmy says, are the words in a given column of proper rhymes that are related. Then we can group them together according to subject matter that enables us to write cogent lyrics. Luckily, I had plenty to choose from and ended up with a decent list of possibilities. Jimmy says of this technique of scanning the rhyming dictionary and picking out related rhymes, tedious as it may seem, the real songwriter will consider each one of these words as a possibility and determine their degree of usefulness by mentally linking each one to the line under consideration. Now, with this rhyming dictionary method, some of the more seasoned songwriting viewers might be asking, what about false rhymes? Also called by other names like slant or near or imperfect rhymes, false rhymes are two words that sound very similar, but do not actually rhyme perfectly because of a difference in a consonant or vowel sound. An example of this is the often overused girl and world rhyme. For the most part, false rhymes have become commonplace in modern songwriting. But when using most rhyming dictionaries, you would not come across these false rhymes, as they would only contain perfect rhymes. For Jimmy's method, he is in favor of avoiding false rhymes, saying, "I have put increasing pressure on myself to avoid these kinds of errors, and I believe that it has forced me to write better lyrics." However, Jimmy is accepting of false rhymes at times, saying, "If it comes down to a decision between using a false rhyme or losing the message in this song, what will I do?" Unfortunately, often the false rhyme is an excuse. False rhyme is to be frowned upon, especially when you've decided you're going to do it anyway. So know when using a rhyming dictionary, just because you can't find the perfect rhyme, it doesn't always mean it's a complete dead end. I'm talking about all this now instead of talking about what lyrics I'm writing, because most of what I wrote during this session I ended up completely redoing. I used a couple of lines here and there, but for the most part I started fresh in my next session. And this is something we see Jimmy do while going through his writing process for a song in Tunesmith. Between the first and second lyric writing session, he completely restarts his chorus, saying, "The rhythms and the rhymes seem forced, and I doubt if adding music is going to help very much. In fact, it may even make matters worse." So restarting a lyric is not something you should be afraid of. Sometimes you need to know when something isn't working, and you need to start new the next day. Starting fresh the next day, I focused on the beginning of my song. Jimmy says, "Every song must begin with the first line, and prosaic as this observation may seem, there is no diminishing the import of the first few words of a lyric. At the beginning of the story, the listener will more than likely make a decision to follow along or be diverted elsewhere." So using my letter for inspiration, I got my first couple of lines, and following Jimmy's advice, I started finding the rhythm of the lyric. He says, "I'll get a rhythm in my head. I usually pat my foot in time while I work on a lyric to see whether the natural accents of the words fall on the proper beats. This also lays the groundwork for the shape of the musical phrases to come." After finishing up my first verse, I used another of Jimmy's recommendations before starting my second, and charted out the syllables and the rhymes for the one I had completed. Jimmy explains, "I decided to try writing another verse 2, and since I like the first one, it makes incredibly good sense to create a template of verse 1. This can be accomplished easily by counting the syllables in each line and marking the rhyme scheme with the letters of the alphabet. A must rhyme with A, and B must rhyme with B, etc." He goes on to explain, "Because the music of different verses will continue to be for all practical purposes identical, and if a lyric is written to this template, then it will more likely fit the same music even if there are some minor anomalies. So, while your verse's syllable count might not match exactly to each other, having this roadmap helps to keep them as uniform as possible so as to fit the music more effectively." Continuing with my second verse and into my chorus, whenever I came to a line that I liked but I couldn't think of a suitable rhyme off the top of my head, I would turn to my rhyming dictionary to see if there was anything suitable in its columns. And we see Jimmy do this in the book when writing his song, saying, "I demonstrate a technique often used on troublesome couplets utilizing the rhyming dictionary. First, by free associating some beginning lines, then, the template tells me the end of the next line should rhyme, so I go to the rhyming dictionary." Jimmy says that while doing this method, you should be open to any word that might have the slightest possibility of working in your lyric, saying, "Some of these are hopelessly far-fetched, but you have to be on tiptoe to reach the cookie jar." You will not find the perfect solution to such problems without making a fool out of yourself once in a while, so don't be afraid of it. My last session before going to the piano was spent writing my final verses and making a clean copy of my lyrics with spaces to add chords or revisions. So while I do that, let's look at some more of Jimmy's lyrical insights. Jimmy gives a lot of advice on things to try to avoid when writing lyrics. First is the cliché. Even if the title of your song uses a common saying or colloquialism, he says, "What will ruin the effect is to include any or too many additional clichés in the lyric proper." The body of the lyric should balance off with great skill the relative triteness of the title by avoiding cuteness. But he also notes that sometimes a cliché can be a valuable component of a lyric if recognized for what it is. Along that same line, Jimmy goes into some specific words that might be best to avoid, saying of the word fool, is it just songwriters who are fools, or is it a unilateral indictment of the human condition? Either way, hasn't enough been written on the subject of clowns, fools, jesters, and harlequins of all kind? And of baby. My late friend Harry Nilsson once said, "Never say baby unless you're talking about an infant, a little person." He also warns against the overuse of heart, as it will inevitably be doing this, being broken, or doing that, singing soaring. As well as being wary of song titles ending in love, as love is a severely crippled word from a rhyming standpoint. There is above, dove, shove, glove, which is not a strong rhyme. Another thing to watch out for, especially when using a rhyming dictionary, is what Jimmy calls two-rhyme hell. He says, "That's when the writer gets stuck on one page of the rhyming dictionary and obsesses in this manner. I've got a strange affliction, that's almost a conviction, 900-line prediction is now my main addiction." The repetition of the suffix iction washes out the effect of the rhyme on the ear. Another thing to avoid is what Jimmy calls dead on its feet similes, saying, the writer is in trouble if he or she is crying like a river, or if their tears are falling like rain. Leave it alone. It's been done already. He also cautions to try to avoid "this is my song" territory. It's a little corny at this point to hear the writer advertising themselves, especially since this genre has been so brilliantly exploited by the masters. It was finally time to put music to the lyrics that I had been writing. I will do another video in the future delving into Jimmy's music writing techniques. However, one lyrical component came up while writing my music. For the most part, my lyrics didn't change when adding the music. I would adjust a word here or there to fit the prosody of the melody better, but they remained mostly intact. I did, however, end up adding a bridge before a final chorus. Jimmy says of adding a bridge in this way, in a verse-chorus form, an added bridge can be devastating because it compresses the first two verse-choruses, lulls us for a moment into believing that the emotional storm has subsided, and then, with exquisite torture, leads us to yet a third and unprecedented cataclysm. One method of Jimmy's that came in handy for writing my bridge was to try working backwards. If my authority is not sufficient on the subject, then listen to Stephen Sondheim. I find it useful to write backwards, and I think most lyric writers probably do when they have a climax, a twist, a punch, a joke. Since I knew what the climax of my bridge was going to be, it was just a matter of finding the right way to get there. Then I had my song. Before I show you the demo, here are a few final words of wisdom from Jimmy. A song is a magical marriage of a lyric, some words, and a melody, some notes. It is not a poem. It is not music. It is in the gray area of synthesis between language, rhythm, and sound that some of the most acute of all sensors of human emotion lie. You're leaving in the morning. I can't can't say I'm surprised to see you go. You always said you wanted space, to feel the sunshine on your face, to leave New York for bright New Mexico. The perfect place for you to get away, where desert breezes sing a lullaby. You'll feel like you're finally free. I can't say the same for me. I'm sorry if I do not say goodbye. Santa Fe, are you listening? She'll be traveling your way soon. Promise me you'll take her hand, lead her to enchanted land, where she can forget about today. Promise me this, oh Santa Fe. Every day I think about leaving, of finding an oasis of my own. But I have a job to do, and I'm not as strong as you. I don't have what it takes to be alone. I can feel you slipping through my fingers, like sand in the dust storm of my mind. The what if and the it could be are never will and not for me. I don't blame you for leaving me behind. Santa Fe, are you listening? She'll be traveling your way soon. Promise me you'll take her hand, lead her to enchanted land, where she can forget about today. Promise me this, oh Santa Fe. I've wanted to tell you for so long, but when I try the words are wrong. I go to speak, but when I do, I can't seem to say that I love you. Santa Fe, are you listening? She'll be traveling your way soon. Promise me you'll take her hand, lead her to enchanted land, where she can forget about today. Promise me this. Promise me this. Promise me this, oh Santa Fe. So that was the song. I think Jimmy's lyric writing techniques are very useful, especially if you're not super confident in your ability to find rhymes. His methodical approach and eye for detail make his process effective. At the same time, Jimmy is the first to say that his is just one of many techniques songwriters have used to create amazing songs, so this is definitely not the only way to write lyrics. This is one way to do it. It's about finding what works best for you. The more songwriters I cover in this series, the more I find myself using a little of this person's technique and a little of that person's method. and in the long run, it will create my own process. So let me know in the comments if you use any of Jimmy's techniques that I mentioned here in your own songwriting process. And if you want more awesome songwriting advice, get a copy of Tunesmith. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos. I'll see you at the next song.